I'm from England, but I live in France, and so I'd never seen any productions of Fredro in England or in France or in Western Europe. I read the play, and I was surprised because it's unique, but it reminded me of perhaps some texts that I knew in English and in French. A Molière play, which is called Les Précieuses Ridicules, which is about two young women, like the Fredro play is. And I think the closest that I come in my own language, my own culture, in the English language, would be thinking of someone like Oscar Wilde, perhaps. Everyone seems to be able to quote a bit of the importance of being earnest, and I feel the same with the Fredro. It's a very interesting meeting, and the more I work on the text, on the play, the more interesting it gets. It's a complicated comedy, I think, and the actors I have are very, very good. It feels like a sort of cultural meeting, you know, between myself and the actors and this old Polish text, and I'm enjoying it very much. Whenever I start a project, I try and find a point of connection with the text, something that interests me from my own culture, from my own time. I don't know why, but the play reminded me of a television series that I watched as a boy in the 70s on British television. Because in the West, after the sexual revolution of the 60s, there were lots of television shows that appeared to be progressive in talking about women's rights, for example. This particular series that I had in mind talked about two young women who were living together in a flat in London. And the idea was that they were able to live without men. And I thought this was interesting because the Fredro play begins with the two young women believing that they can live without men. Rather than treat the Fredro play as a museum piece and try and recreate something from the 19th century, it seemed important to try and modernize it. But I didn't at the same time want to make something today, because I feel like the questions today are so complex that to try and bring the Fredro play really into today's debate about sexual politics would be extremely complicated. And I thought then, well, maybe it's interesting to have a slight distance, you know, a little bit of nostalgia, but something that feels that it's still of our time. And we have to remember that, you know, the 1970s, there was no, you know, there were no mobile phones, there wasn't the same explosion of technology that we've been living through today. I came up with the idea of the house, which was taken from this sitcom, really, and I sort of expanded it to be able to turn the house and have two locations, the garden and the facade of the house, and then inside the house. And then we even have one scene where there's a side of the house which I've imagined is bordering a golf course. So there's sort of like three realistic locations. Dick Bird is the designer and Sylvie Martin-Hyszka is the costume designer, and they are collaborators that I've worked with for the last 20 years more. Sylvie, I've been working with her for nearly 25 years. It's always good to get out of the house, you know, leave your screens in the sitting room, put down your Netflix and get out to the theatre, because it's always a beautiful thing to agree to be in a room with live people, you know, watching actors telling a story. Come through curiosity to see what this English fella can do with your famous Fredro text, because I guarantee you it won't be anything that you've seen before.